What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Lake Pro Tackle. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Guys, we're going to be talking about kind of the science behind why different hooks work well for some baits and why some hooks work well for other baits. Specifically, we're going to be talking about treble hooks. Now, we're going to be kind of starting up, not like a new series or anything, but we're going to be diving more into just letting me yap about certain things. So today, we're going to be talking about treble hooks. Last video, we were talking about kind of where fish go in the summertime in accordance to the water column. If you haven't watched that video, guys, it's a really good video and definitely helps you find and locate fish in the summertime, especially if you're struggling catching fish on a consistent basis. So, first off here, for treble hooks, there are so many different treble hooks out there on the market. There's so many makers. We carry a lot of them here. We've got Owner, BKK, we've got Gamakatsu, used to have some Mustad, we've got a couple more as well, and there's just so many options. And one of the main constants that you find across all hook brands is that they typically have 2 to 3 different styles of hooks that serve totally different functions. And what I'm talking about are going to be standard, really straight shank style hooks. The standard round bend or straight style hook is going to be just a perfect U curve. It is going to make a U, and it's going to remain ultra straight slash have no extra bends or anything really, super off the wall. This is going to be kind of what most people think of when they think of treble hooks, and it's probably the most common. You find it on different baits across many different lineups and different brands. Stock round bend hooks, I mean, they come on OSP Blitz, they come on Strike King crankbaits, they come stock on so many different baits out there. Not just that, swim baits as well. Almost every single bait in every category usually comes stock with a round bend style hook. Now, the other style of hook, and there's many more out there that really kind of create their own category or really are in another category of their own, but something like this, something like the Mustad triple grip or the BKK hyperlatch that has an over accentuated curve at the bottom. And we'll get into the specifics on why this one is so good certain times of the year or perhaps on certain species of fish compared to other ones. Now, the other category that I would say are going to be the really extra wide gap. And some of the main focuses on the extra wide gap are going to be how big of a mouth it creates. And when I refer to mouth is going to be from the hook main shank area all the way to the point. That distance between the two, as it opens up, that fish is going to get hooked easier and easier, or at least in theory have a better time getting a hook point in its mouth. Then let's talk about the main benefits of a round bend treble hook. This is just a good, constant, reliable hook that most of the time will get you primarily the best hookup ratio. Now, there's going to be a difference between hookup ratio and hookup to landing ratio. The hookup to landing ratio is going to be focused on, once you get that fish hooked, is it getting in the boat? With all the jumps, the twists, the turns, the big runs, everything like that. Now, the hookup ratio is going to be the initial hooking up to the fish. This is where a lot of anglers struggle, whether it's with their retrieve speed, whether it's the certain bait's color. There's a lot of different factors that play into the specifics of hooking up to that fish. Now, in this video, let's just take this in a theory here and talk about the hooks as if they are indestructible and they don't bend and they don't break. So the only way the fish can really come off is going to be if they rotate the hook out or pop the hook out, as many anglers say. So keeping that in mind, we've got indestructible hooks here. They're not bending out, which is a main cause of a lot of people losing fish, especially light hooks like treble hook baits on jerk baits, treble hooks on jerk baits. Those are just major player where they bend the hooks out. So we're going to think about this from a more scientific term or at least from a viewpoint of these hooks don't just bend open. So for round bend hooks, again, they have probably the best hookup ratio because those points are sitting straight up on that on this hook here, and it's going to really provide a straight line for that hook to penetrate the fish's mouth. Some other hooks out there, they're angled slightly in, pointed towards the shank just a little bit. Other ones, again, have a very accentuated curve at the bottom and point in, like extra wide gap EWGs. This one here is straight. So initially, as that fish gets hooked, it is going straight into that fish's mouth. So typically in colder winter months, or at least transition periods where those fish are feeding heavily on harder forage, whether it's crawfish or really, that water's really cold, their mouth gets real dense, having a round bend hook like this definitely helps the hook penetration and can increase that hookup ratio. Let's talk about the hyperlatch hook here, or really kind of that really deep bend curve, really close to EWG, but not quite EWG, somewhere in the middle. This one here, as you can see on the screen, I have a little picture of it here for y'all. This has a very accentuated curve at the bottom, and it also has really a straight up point. This takes the benefits of that round bend hook, but also marries it with some of the benefits of an EWG. And let's talk about this real quick. So this is one of my favorite hooks out there on the market. This one in particular, the hyperlatch hook, holds those fish on so extremely well because once they are hooked, let's get past the first hurdle of actually hooking the fish. This hook right here, since it has that deep accentuated curve in the bottom, that fish can't rotate the hook out. And what do I mean by that? I'm sure most of you have experienced this if you've thrown a square bill, a deep diving crankbait, a swim bait perhaps, where that fish comes up, shakes the bait, and it's just crazy hectic, and that bait goes flying out. What happens in those split seconds, those microseconds, for that fish to be able to do that? So let's take this guy right here, for example. This is the big DRT Police, dives down 40 foot. It's got some mega hooks on it. And you're gonna notice on a lot of these bigger style baits, especially the ones that exceed like an ounce, they already come stock with hyperlatch style or really EWG style hooks. So let's go ahead, pop this guy off of here. I need a hook to pop this rubber band off, but most of these already have these EWG style hooks, and there's a really big reason for that because manufacturers know, people will blame whatever they want to blame on losing a fish. So a lot of the time, it's just the bait's fault. It's not the hook's fault, it's just the bait's fault. And that is no fault to the average consumer out there. A lot of guys just aren't educated on how hook systems and how physics really work. So we're going to work through that here. So on a bait, and excuse the longer video, guys, I just like to yap a little bit, and if you don't enjoy this type of content, let me know down in the comments. I really enjoy just breaking down my theories and some of the science behind why certain systems in my arsenal work out, and hopefully it can help you as well. So as I think about a crankbait or even a swim bait here, most of the time your structure is going to be about the same. You've got a line tie pretty far ahead of the first treble hook. You've got your first treble hook here, and you've got a back treble hook. Now, depending on what bait you're throwing, you might have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 hooks. It really can vary because there's so many different hard baits out there. But this one in particular, a big, deep diving crankbait. This thing weighs like 2 ounces or something. It is a big crankbait. So it has a lot of weight behind it. And with a lot of weight, you have a lot of potential energy stored up in here, ready to be released, especially when you have a fish on it. Now, let's talk about the most common situation where I see baits being flung off. The typical time you see this is when that fish has the back treble hook. Why is this such a big deal? Well, number one, if that fish has the bait in the very, very back and you have your line tied to the very front, what is all this in between here? This is just a big weight waiting to be slung off. And a lot of the time, I think you can visualize it now, where that fish comes up with your bait, it's going up towards the surface, and it all of a sudden does a massive head shake. What happens to these hooks? These hooks are being rotated. And you see on swim baits, this helps a lot because you are throwing bigger and bigger and heavier baits. On those bigger swim baits, a lot of them come with hook swivels. That can help a little bit minimize some of the torsion on the bait. However, you do still have the issue that if that bait gets fully straight like this, if it keeps it straight, that hook maintains its verticality to the bait like this. If it keeps it straight, it will eventually knock that hook out. So again, follow me here. I've got my finger on the hook. And so my finger's like this. The fish is this way, the hook's this way. If this rotates enough, it's coming off, right? So this is why you hear swim bait fishermen especially say, you gotta crank as hard as you can. There's a reason for that. And there is a fine line between having the right line, being able to do that, and also, obviously not pulling your hook out, which can be an issue. But in this case here, if you reel as hard as you can and you keep this tight, number one, that fish is probably just being skull dragged in. Number two, even if it tries to shake and you're holding it tight, that hook isn't being rotated out like that. So I think you can visualize it now with other baits on this table here. There's a reason Kevin Van Dam, the greatest angler of all time, chose short shank mustad triple grips for his deep diving crankbait, his 8XDs, 10XDs, these bigger style plugs. I mean, this one right here, it doesn't even tell me how big it is, but this is almost, I think, a 3/4 ounce crankbait. It might even be a 1 ounce crankbait almost. But on these deeper plugs, let's talk about some more physics here. When you have shorter shank style hooks, you're minimizing the distance of rotation, or you're minimizing how easy this lever can be used to rotate. If you're familiar with levers, guys, a lever is anything or something that creates leverage. And I wish I had, I guess I could use with levers, guys. This is how fulcrums work. This is how levers work, right? So if my finger is in the middle of this and I want to push down on this side, I'm going to have to exert more force to push it down than if it's on this side, which is further away. If you don't understand how levers and fulcrums and leverage works, look it up. Go to a physics class, learn it just a little bit. But a lot of the time, especially with longer shank hooks, you're gonna find that the fish can rotate that hook a little bit easier. Short shank, it condenses it down and it makes it a little bit harder for the fish to rotate it out. So there's a big reason why swim bait makers like Mike Bucca on his mega bull shads runs short shank EWGs. There's a reason why the greatest angler of all time chose short shank EWGs on his big crankbaits. Now, it can be said that a lot of swim bait manufacturers or crankbait manufacturers or jerkbait manufacturers just use round bend hooks. Now, typically, I'm not going to say as, a cost means it's the most inexpensive, but in terms of being able to just slap a hook on there, I know a lot of companies out there use them because they are so cheap and they're a little bit easier to make. Now, besides the point of hook spinning out and stuff like that, having a longer style shank hook will typically get you a better initial bite, right? But if you're throwing the right bait, a lot of the time, especially if you're throwing a little peanut bait like this, getting that fish hooked isn't the main issue. Getting the fish in the boat or on the bank is the bigger issue. So a lot of manufacturers most of the time don't care too much to put, upgraded hooks. You're able to do that and choose them on your own. Like myself, I personally enjoy BKKs and owners the most. I used Gamakatsus and Mustads and literally Ichikawas and the Mega Bass hooks. I've used them all, and I have my own hook preferences. So if you're putting a high-end hook and creating more price in a bait like this, it doesn't discourage me from buying it, but I'm just going to replace the hooks anyway. So why even do that? So going back to the main styles of hooks, right? You've got your hook shank. Is it a tall shank? Is it a short shank? You've got round bend hooks. You've got hyperlatch style hooks like this. You've got EWGs. Each one serves its own purpose, and I hope you learned a little bit from this video about why each one is more specific or better for certain situations. Another good example is going to be utilizing different hooks for line through swim baits or line through rigs, whether it's, I guess you could line through almost anything you want, but typically more found in swim baits, right? So something like this, the Hatch Match Goby is a line through style Goby swim bait. It comes with a round bend hook. Now, great for hookup ratios, great for landing as well, because it is a line through. So since the line through detaches from the main weight of the bait, it isn't directly affecting how that hook swings around. Now, it obviously still can if the bait stays low enough to the hook, but that is kind of the theory behind why line through swim baits are so good. Now, one thing I really haven't seen on most line through swim baits, you know, including like the Zal Dangerous swim bait, the Defiant swim baits, most of those are still straight like J hooks. They have that round bend as a J hook stock straight out of the package. I really haven't seen that hook technology translate from this like EWG style hook, like single J hook, over to something like this. But when it comes to your jig heads, when it comes to literally anything else like that, when it comes to like just normal standard wide gap hooks, you know, this technology or these theories can be translated over. So as I'm looking at certain style hooks, and that's another reason I love the spear point hooks so much, is they're a little bit different. They actively push that fish back into the barb and back down into the hook. Same kind of theory with this guy right here. The hyperlatch 71s I have found to be one of the strongest, and they keep your fish on really, really, really well. I've lost, to my knowledge, one, maybe two fish in the past 3 to 4 years on these hyperlatch style hooks. Of course, EWG still work great. I do know on a round bend like this, I've lost a couple. Even though the hookup ratio was better, I started losing more and more fish on them just because those fish wanted to go airborne. They were acting crazy, and maybe it could have been my system. Maybe my rod was too whippy. Maybe I had too light of a line. Maybe I needed to just reel even harder and go to like an 8-speed instead of a 7-speed. These are all factors, and this is why we all love fishing, right? We're trying to figure it out, but I hope you enjoyed this little video talking about different style treble hooks and how they can help increase your hookup and landing ratio in your fishing life. So guys, thank you so much for watching. I know it was a longer video, but if you enjoyed the content, please subscribe and leave a like on this video here. Definitely comment if you enjoyed this style and want me to do more of these, kind of talking and breaking down my own theories in fishing. But thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video here at Lake Pro Tackle. See you guys.